Okay, today is still the 4th of July weekend. I just got through coming from Connect with Fellowship right here in Jackson, Tennessee. But I was told as entering into the worship service that I was not to record anything inside the church building. I almost had to sign a contract that I would not take out my cell phone and video any of the services. I thought once about asking the question, well, do you do all your guests this way? But I thought no, because I'm aware of the controversy that has been going on in my life here in Jackson, Tennessee. How that there has been an open debate about how people feels about my message. It's not my tactic that I'm using towards getting my message out, but it's the message. And because it has brought so much controversy pertaining to my life, now when I pull up at a church, in which I've been to this church one time before, and they didn't give me instructions like that. They welcomed me right on in. And I did get to view the first session in regard to using my video camera. But for some reason, odd, strange reason, these people in Jackson, Tennessee, I don't know if they got more to hide than the people over in Middle Tennessee, or if they're just not that familiar with the laws. And I looked at because the assistant minister come out, not just security, but the assistant minister come out and said basically the same thing. Well, you're welcome here, but your video camera is not. And I said something to the degree, I go, well, there's nothing on your door, on your window, indicating that cameras are not allowed. He goes, well, we're telling you verbally that you're welcome here at the church, but no videoing. And I'm thinking to myself, no videoing? That's very odd. Because I'm thinking, would they actually do all their guests that way? Somebody that come in to a sanctuary, and don't get me wrong, I realize that there are certain things about the sanctuary that are private, especially if you're honing in on one particular person's life and you're interfering with people's privacy. But just to do a view shot, an overview shot towards the particulars of the audience that you're in is very, very, very unusual. Whenever you have one group of people in Middle Tennessee that allows it, but another group of people in West Tennessee that don't allow it. Is it because the people in West Tennessee have more to hide than the people in Middle Tennessee? Or is it because the people in West Tennessee are more paranoid and are not as familiar with the laws pertaining to videoing a service? What if this same service was being held down at the public auditorium, where you can pack in maybe 5 times more people? Would I still not be allowed? Allergies, pollen. Would I still not be allowed to video the worship service? They didn't try to harm me or nothing whenever I went in there, but I could tell that I could just feel eyes on me, you know, because of all the controversy that has surrounded my life. And I could tell whenever certain people come and sit around me or beside me or in behind me, they're doing that for observation purposes. This is at the worship center, the worship church. I'll be glad whenever I get whatever's bothered me out. Here in Jackson, Tennessee. And like I said, they didn't pull guns on me. The actual minister that ministered today, I don't even know his name. I should, I guess, by looking at the paperwork, I didn't look at it that well. Did shake my hand, but I felt uncomfortable in that atmosphere because of their uncomfortableness. I need to let go of my phone because it's supposed to be hands-free. I just thought about that, the new law that come into effect this month. But to go into an atmosphere of worship and to feel the atmosphere of people watching you and observing you. And they're not watching you and observing you because they admire you. They're watching you and observing you because of all the yik-yak and the gossip that's been told on you. And they don't know if you're going to possibly try to be disruptive in the service. They don't know if you're going to try to strip off your clothes and act inappropriate. They don't know if you're going to get loud and start screaming and hollering. But to be under that type of scrutiny in a worship service, I had to put all those emotions and all those feelings and all those thoughts to the side. And I still sat there as a ordinary individual and worshiped thy God. And I worshiped thy God in the way that I felt free and appropriate to worship thy God. And if it meant me raising my hands, I raised my hands. And if it meant me waving my hands, I waved my hands. Now this is the church here that told me that I was not acceptable in their audience. And this is the church here that told me the same thing, that I was not welcome. Second Baptist and Love and Truth Church. Now, if Love and Truth Church, in which I've been to, I guess 4 or 5 different times, if that was bothering these people to the degree about the cell phone, why didn't security come to me rather than running me off and say, Mr. Jackson, you're welcome to worship here, but we don't allow for strangers or visitors or guests to pull out their cell phone and video any of our services. I would have gladly put my phone up. The same thing with the Second Baptist, and the same thing with Victory Baptist, and the same thing with First Baptist. All you got to do is walk up to somebody and tell them, hey, this is what we expect out of you as a visitor or a guest, and then I abide by the rules and regulations. You know, as I was sitting there, at the church that I just come from, I'm like, and I don't mean this to be in a judgmental way, but I was sitting there thinking, what am I allowed to do here? What am I permitted to do? Because whenever a group of people, security and the assistant minister, walks up to you, and they wasn't really harsh as far as being stonewalling or loud or inappropriate, but when they all come up to you like that, it plants a lot of uncertainty in your mind to the degree of, what is this all about? There's never been any type of issues here in this church with me towards me worshiping. What is this all about? And it's simply because of me taking out my camera and doing a overview shot to identify the type of audience that I'm in, regardless whether I'm in a type of audience of all white, a type of audience of all black, regardless whether I'm in an audience of it being mixed, regardless whether I'm in an audience of Baptist or an audience of Pentecostal, where they're worshiping in a different manner. It's just an overview. But that's not how they're taking it here in Jackson, Tennessee, or in West Tennessee, towards me taking out my camera. But yet, no, it's okay for them to read about me. It's okay for them to debate me. It's okay for them to discuss me. It's okay for them to slander me. It's okay for them to judge me and even condemn me. Because there's been lots of different opinions about what is going on and has went on pertaining to these churches up here. And it's not just one particular church. Now, I'm going to end all of that by saying this. I have learned to take this with a grain of salt, because according to the scriptures, it says that it was as the noise of thunder, one of the beasts said, "Come and see," pertaining to the 6th chapter, the 1st and the 2nd verse. They even sung a song that, in a way, was giving out strong messages in regard to Christ being the only king. Christ is the only king pertaining to our salvation, our souls, that sits upon the right hand of God, that makes intercession for all of us. Once more, I keep forgetting about the new law that has just come into play. That come into play the 5th of July, and I'm supposed to be hands-free. It's hard to break old habits just within a day or two after the new law has come into effect. I'm trying to make a point here in regard to my audience, to my viewers, that to be discriminated against, regardless whether it's about the color of your hair, the color of your skin, the type of automobile that you drive, because you have certain views that other people don't have. These are all supposed to be laws that demand for people not to hold you against, regardless whether it be a church, a restaurant, a Walmart, a clothing store, a hardware, a co-op, or a specialty item store. These are supposed to be ingrained laws that dictate of not being discriminatory towards another human being just simply because of the human elements. Just like me being obese. He spoke about that today in Corinthians. Let me get this straight here. Corinthians, I think it was the 6th chapter is where he was, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Corinthians, the 6th chapter, beginning at the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th verse. He spoke about the body. He spoke about homosexuality. He also spoke about obesity. He spoke about the temple. And all the things that he preached upon, I agreed with. I agreed with everything that he preached on and in the dynamics that he preached upon to it. Because if I was up there in that same pulpit, I would have been preaching a similar type message that had the same fundamentals as what his message did. I may have preached it in a different style. I may have been a little louder. I may have been a little more sober. I don't know about all the particulars, but I would have preached it 99% in the format that he preached it in. So that's not the problem. And it never has been the problem towards me driving all the way down here from my home, which is basically about 65 or 70 miles from Weakley County, just to worship in some of these churches down here that I am fully familiar with because I lived here for 10 years. The problem is, whenever you take out your camera in First Baptist Church in Clarksville, Tennessee, and you view not only the worship and the worship center where people are, pertaining to their singers, their ministers, etc., song leaders, song directors, and then you do a rollover shot towards an overview, and no one says a word to you. They still welcome you. They still love you. They still appreciate you coming. But you come over the river, over to West Tennessee, and you do the exact same thing, and my God, you'd think that that the heavens was fixing to open. That Gable was fixing to blow the trumpet, and all hell was fixing to bust loose. Like I said, I agree that the church is a sacred sanity, and it needs to be treated as such. And if I was in there purposely trying to target one particular family or one particular person for whatever reason, right, I should stand in violation of privacy rights in regard to me doing that. But if you just do a rollover, a overview shot, like if you're in let's say you're in a NASCAR race and the camera all of a sudden does an overview shot, or you're in a major ball game, a Super Bowl, and the camera does an overview shot. This is the part that these people don't understand, is that an overview shot is correct ethics whenever it comes to somebody digitally filming the audience. And they're not trying to pick nobody out of the audience. It's just a way of familiarizing with your viewers that this is the group that I'm here with at this particular moment, regardless whether they're all white, all black, or they're mixed, or they're Pentecostal, or they're Baptist, or they're Church of Christ. You know, some play music, Church of Christ don't play music. There's all kinds of different styles of worship. But whenever you do an overview shot like that, it's not that you're trying to get personal with anybody. You're just trying to allow for your viewers to have a better understanding in where you are, what type of group that you're with, and it puts a deeper understanding a lot of times of the message coming from the messenger, which no doubt the minister at that particular time that's in the pulpit is the primary messenger. But with me being a camera shot viewer, I turn into a secondary messenger, because now I'm distributing his techniques, his audience, his platform on my platform. And now the two is becoming one. That don't have nothing to do with privacy. What it has to do with is a group of people that for some reason are paranoid. And I don't know if it's because there are certain people in the audience that they're trying to keep disclosed, certain people that they want to keep under the wraps towards not exposing who certain people are. Because once more, I'm not trying to expose their audience, but let's just say that if that was my motive, that I was trying to expose their audience. Is it that they got more to cover up and hide here in West Tennessee than they do in Middle Tennessee? Because I don't get this type of trouble in Middle Tennessee. Is it because the people in Middle Tennessee are more familiar with the First Amendment laws and the laws pertaining to being able to video somebody if you're out in the public? Because it is a public domain. Even though it may be privately owned by 4, 5, or 6, 8, 10, 12 individuals, or just one individual, it's still being conducted as a public setting. And because it's in a public setting, turns it into a public event. It would be the same thing if you was to go down here at a PTL meeting, or a school board meeting, or if you was to go to City Hall and had a public debate pertaining to a certain politician with certain rules and regulations. It is a public setting. Even though it's on private ground, it's on a public setting. Any parking lot is open for the general public, unless the owner of that property comes out and says, you're not allowed to park there. See, it was so bad up in Martin, Tennessee, that Mr. Brundridge actually thought that he had the power of banning me from City Hall, not just by me walking into City Hall, but actually banning me from parking on the parking lot of City Hall, because City Hall is right beside First Baptist Church there in Martin, Tennessee. For some abnormal, unknown reason, First Baptist Church, and I'm pretty sure it's because of my background, because somebody got online and looked at all that stuff that happened to me out in Oklahoma City. That's what's brought a lot of anxiety and controversy in my life. But because First Baptist Church was directly right beside, side by side, the City Hall, and because I had been banned from City Hall, I parked my vehicle over on Martin City Hall, their property, get out and walk and go to church. And my God, you would have thought that somebody had unleashed hell in Martin, Tennessee, towards them looking for me, thinking that I was back in First Baptist Church, sneaking around, I guess up in the rafters, I don't know, maybe down underneath something, looking for me, thinking that I was at First Baptist. And the whole time, instead of me going to First Baptist, I actually went to a Methodist church. Now, if that is not some sort of phobia that I've been dealing with pertaining to law enforcement, regardless whether it's law enforcement in Martin, Tennessee, law enforcement in Kenton, Tennessee, law enforcement in other areas, especially up here in Jackson, Tennessee, if that's not some sort of phobia pertaining to how these people feel about me and how that I'm being not just judged but condemned on the level of them discriminating against my rights towards me being able to go either as a visitor or a guest into their sanctuary. If that's not being discriminatory, I don't know what is. But this is the same type of abuse that I've been receiving now since the occurrence took place in my life in 2009, that Channel 9, Channel 11, Channel 3, and other local TV stations there in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, refuses to acknowledge that what they done is against the law towards defamation of character. They have tried every element in the world of trying to assassinate my character. And to be quite honest with you, it's been one of the most horriblest events that I think any individual can go through whenever your own people is demonizing you and saying that you're either a terrorist or saying that you're crazy or saying that you're harmful or saying that you're this or saying that you're that, simply based around a bunch of malicious lies. I find it to be absolutely horrifying in what the church community and the law enforcement community here in America has been a part of, regardless whether it was in West Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kentucky, or in downtown Atlanta. I find it to be one of the most horriblest things that I've had to encounter since I have stepped out into the eyes of the general public. Since I have stepped out into the eyes of the general public. And I just pray to God that nobody else has to go through what I have went through simply because of my views and simply because of me demonstrating the right pertaining to my First Amendment rights towards me telling people about my story, about what I believe, and about the things that I've been through. It is so appalling to think that an individual has been treated this way simply because of their views. I have never been so hurt by my own people in my whole entire life. Ever. Ever. And I find it to be very, very offensive. The church today did allow for me to walk in, did allow for me to sit and worship, did allow for me to participate, but there was certain guidelines, strict guidelines. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I thought at first I was going to have to sign some sort of a contract telling them that I would not pull out my cellular phone under any circumstances. It didn't matter if somebody was choking or somebody was having a heart attack or if somebody had been filled full of the Holy Spirit and decided to get up and do a Holy Ghost dance, that I was not to pull out my phone and video anything in their sanctuary. They can use the excuse that they want, but the bottom line is I'm still being ostracized because of my message that I've been a part of now for 30 plus years. Still being ostracized by the church community. Still being demonized and dehumanized by the church community simply because of the miracles that has taken place in my life in the name of the Thus saith the Lord thy God Almighty, in Jesus Christ's name. So I'm going to let my viewers go, and to know that I love them, I care about them, I pray for them, and good luck to all of us as we go forth conquering and to conquer the way that God intended for us to be a part of. And just like the minister talked about today, our temples are not ours. Our temples belong to the Lord's. And we are to use our temple for the Lord in the way that the Lord intends for us to use our temples. Like I said, over in Corinthians, while he was preaching, the message that he was preaching, I agreed with everything that he was talking about, because he did not take nothing out of context pertaining to 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9, 10, 11, and I think he went to 12 and maybe even 13. I don't know. I think he stopped at 12, but maybe he did go to 13. But God bless. Good luck to all of us. And once more, shalom.